So do you want us to start the video?
Wait a sec.
You can start the video.
Okay. תדאג, חוזרים. יוסי, בוא הנה. הוא מתחיל, אנדרו? או שאני ישר? יוסי, בוא הנה.
ירושלים, עיר שובקית הולך במדרחוב, מרגיש כמו קיבוץ, בלוד, אלף תרבויות, לכל אחד יש ערבים בסדר, ערבים בחדר, וכולם פה קולטים את אלוהים, אחרי תל ירושלים נחמה, יום ליום תל אביב נצחיים, חייבים לזור, תרבו לבוא לשמיים, אין ים, מה עכשיו על הסביבה, 3 שנים לקח לי לקבל את ההחלטה, הוא עושה חפצים, אתה היחידה, אני נשמע תל אביב, אני מגיע, באתי להזיע, אתה היחידה, אני נשמע יצאתי לכיוון לשום החוף, איזה שוק, אני עומד לחטוף, ועכשיו שאני בתל אביב סוף סוף תשתלב עם הענף, הכל טרי וזה טוב. אוי, כמה יש עדיין, נשרפו לי העיניים, אחרי שנתיים שסדום והמורה, לא מזהה את עצמי במראה. אני מתערב, מתמזג, משחקים, כל הבעלים של הדיסקוטקים. עכשיו שאני מבין, זה לא נותן כמה רעש, כמה ביח, אני גשת, אני כל היום מתבזבז על שלום, הזכירות, הון, הלכות בשיגעון, ואז נפל האסימון. גד, גדן, היה לי בידיים, מה עכשיו עוד על הסביבה? 3 שנים לקח לי לקבל את ההחלטה, הורס את החטאים לתוך המזוודה, מהעיר לכפר לכיוון ירושלים, חוזר אליי.
Okay, all right. That looked pretty good. Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov to the people in Columbus. Good morning and welcome to Jewish Columbus's second session in the Israel 614 education series. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Andrew Grossman. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Israel 614 mission that we had originally planned for September 2020. We're really thrilled that you've all joined us, and we can't wait to take you on a fantastic journey through Israel by meeting and hearing from some incredible speakers along the way. The genesis for this series came from a plan to travel to Israel in 2020. When that didn't happen due to the pandemic, the team at Jewish Columbus pivoted between the Israel and overseas departments' plans for Israeli speakers and generous support from the Diamond Family Foundation, who sponsor an annual Israel speaker series. We realized it made the most sense to combine efforts, and that's what brings us all here today. I'd like to thank the Diamond family, Lisa Ween, Michal, Avera Samuel, for their support and for their efforts to organize this series. In addition, I'd like to thank Ayelet Ben-David, chair of the Israel and Overseas Committee, for her partnership and hard work in helping to realize this series, as well as my friend and yours, Bobby Schottenstein, and my friend and yours, Audrey Tuckerman, for their continued leadership with Israel 614 and all things Jewish Columbus. Our goals are to engage, connect, inspire, educate, and hopefully spark interest in going on a Jewish Columbus mission to Israel when it's safe to travel again, which cannot come fast enough. We have incredible speakers lined up, and as soon as they are all confirmed, we're going to make sure that everybody has the list. We'll make it public, and you'll all be welcome to join us for future sessions. Today's session is a Zoom webinar, which means that you can see the speakers, but they cannot see you. Our wonderful speakers, Yossi Elad and Hagit Evron, will be conducting a fantastic cooking demo, and I will be moderating any questions that come in via the chat button on your screen, time permitting. We'll do our best to get to everyone's questions along the way, but please bear with us. I'm particularly excited to do this this morning. I don't know Hagit, but I have read some of her work. And while I don't know Yossi personally, I did have one of the finest meals of my life at Machneyehuda in Jerusalem for my children's B'nai Mitzvah, which was delicious and fun and enjoyable, and a memory that my family cherishes today. Yossi and Hagit, would you mind introducing yourselves, telling our audience a little bit about your background, and how Israel in a Pita came to be.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew, and welcome everyone. We have a little request from the chef before we introduce ourselves and get this show rolling. Yossi?
Just have
For those of you who are joining
who are
us
joining us and
with cooking.
with me, have boiling water in a pot on the stove, so we'll save time later, and I'll give you some instructions what to do with it.
Okay. So welcome to the wonderful home of Chef Yossi Elad and his spouse Orly, who you cannot see. They live right on the seaside of Jaffa. Hopefully we can get a glimpse of the sunset later. I met Yossi while I was writing a culinary column in one of Israel's leading newspapers. He was a cook in Machneyehuda, a chef. He hates it when I say chef, but he is a chef, a great chef. To me, Yossi is a chef that really, not just to me, I think to a lot of Israelis, who really symbolizes what Israeli cuisine is all about. And we knew right away that we would do something together. And this show came about when we decided that our joint mission is to present Israel through food, which we personally think is a great way to show any country, but especially Israel. So we came up with this show called Israel in a Pita, which basically talks about the journey that Israel took from being a culinary desert back in the 50s to a very exciting culinary Luna Park like it is today. I'm sure some of you have been to Israel, and hopefully when this pandemic is over, you will come back and join us to the markets and the restaurants, and it will all come back to live again. But until then, what we're going to do now is we're going to give you a glimpse into the Israeli kitchen through 4 dishes, which we think symbolize the Israeli cuisine. All 4 dishes have a small story behind them, and they represent an era and a perception of what Israeli food is all about. But before that, I really want to ask Yossi, what is the most important thing to talk about when you talk about Israeli food?
Well, when you cook Israeli food, the most important thing is to have fun.
And what does that mean?
To see people enjoy the food you are cooking.
So,
and
also
to invent yourself every time again and again and again.
So I'm sure that the ones of you that are joining us and cooking saw the recipes that we sent you. It's really important that you understand that Israeli food, because the cuisine is not traditional like the French or the Italian cuisine, you're very welcome to be flexible and to invent any ingredients that you may not have at that moment. You can change with something else. And even today, actually, when I came, Yossi said, oh, I forgot the cream for this, so I'm going to do something else. So when he says to have fun, we really mean like to really broaden your horizons, be creative, go crazy, a little bit of what the Israeli character is all about. And I think the main characteristic of being an Israeli cook and a chef is to have
chutzpah.
And what is chutzpah?
Chutzpah is to cook whatever you like.
So it's really the secret ingredient of the Israeli
cuisine.
chefs. Okay.
Israeli chef.
So we're going to start actually with the 50s and with a signature dish that we personally have very strong feelings towards. And we're talking about ptitim, known as Israeli couscous, known as also as semolina in the Italian cuisine. Orzo, that's right. So the story behind the Israeli couscous is that Ben Gurion, back in the 50s, our first prime minister, realized that there is no rice in Israel because back in the 50s, there was no import. So he personally, the story tells, went to Osem, which is the biggest food manufacturer here in Israel, and came to the owner and said, please create something that resembles rice. And this is how these ptitim came to Israel. So they're not really rice. They're actually, and they're not even semolina. But along the years, they sort of took the name Israeli couscous. And I think that there's no Israeli kitchen or dishes without using the ptitim. So today we're going to do a special dish called
Tabbouleh, and we changed the tabbouleh is usually done with balga. We changed I changed the balga into Israeli couscous into ptitim.
Okay.
And that's what we need the boiling water for.
So the ones of you who have boiling water on the stove, on the pot, need to.
You add a teaspoon of salt, and you add about 100 grams of ptitim. On the recipe, I said to crush them, but you don't have to crush them. You can save it. It's just my scratch. And you boil them according to the instructions for about 7 to 8 minutes.
So while
then
they're being
drain them and have them ready while we are doing the first dish, which is tabbouleh.
And what is tabbouleh?
Tabbouleh actually is a dish that came from Lebanon. It's a mixture of herbs. The Lebanese add some tomatoes and cucumbers. As I said before, we are having fun and we are Israelis and having chutzpah. I'm changing the recipe a little bit, and instead of tomatoes, I add some strawberries, some Afghan berries, you see, and I'll decorate them with some flowers.
Edible flowers.
Edible flowers, of course. Everything is edible.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's get this recipe rolling.
The recipe says parsley, coriander, mint, garden cress, spring onions. I combined them all. Now I'll show you a miracle. Yeah, I look at the camera and I chop them. I see my hands on the camera, so it's not a miracle, okay? I chop them very finely. My stuff into a bowl. I'll chop some mint. Mint gives it a very refreshing flavor. People who are allergic to mint or to coriander or cilantro can skip it. I didn't put on the menu, but I'll add some chives. So the guys over here will have a different kind of tabbouleh. If you want, you can add some radish. It's not on the recipe, but
it was in the market, so you couldn't resist.
In the market, and I couldn't resist. Exactly, Hagit, exactly. And 2 nice spring onions. You don't have to be so fast. You can do it a little bit slower. Yeah.
Just to tell you here that Yossi has a collection of knives, which I think are more expensive than any collection of diamonds a wealthy family may have. Am I correct?
Yes. A bit of salt. I usually use fresh herbs. So I want to add some pepper. I took some peppercorns, molten pesto. Opa! Some olive oil, virgin olive oil. Don't be greedy and buy the best olive oil you can get. And some lemon juice. I squeezed it in the head. It's fresh, so segments are inside. Here are 2 spoons. And the secret ingredient, the Israeli couscous. Titim.
Which you crushed,
Which I crushed.
but they don't have to be crushed.
They don't have to be crushed.
So the real reason you crushed them is just because you were born. You
I
were just
want
bored.
I want them to look like crushed wheat, like bulgur.
Ah, okay.
So it will give you at least visually. Yeah. And the tabbouleh salad is ready. Now, take a plate. I'll put some tabbouleh salad. I'll take the Afghan berries and the strawberry. Just a few drops of olive oil. And to finish it,
Ta-da!
ta-da!
Israeli, Yossi style, Israeli couscous tabbouleh. So before we get on to the next dish, I'm sure that the wonderful people who took the time to join us this
Yeah.
morning, I'm going to move out of your way, are interested to know a little bit about your background. So you were born in Israel
Almost.
to a Czech family.
To a Czech family. I was born in Bratislava, but I was 9 months old when my parents forced me to come to Israel. They didn't ask me. And here I am.
And you became a cook because a chef?
Well, because I love people. And suddenly one day I realized that people love my food. So I didn't want to hide my passion, my vision of making a nice Israeli cuisine. And I decided after I was a hotel manager to quit and start cooking. And I won't tell you my whole life story, but in 2009, I opened with 2 young boys a Machneyehuda restaurant in Jerusalem. In 2013, I moved to London and I opened the Palomar, which was nominated as the best restaurant in England for 2015.
Israeli pride.
Israeli pride. I came back to Israel and I resigned.
Not really.
Not really.
But if I were to ask you in 2 sentences to describe why the world realized that why is Israeli cuisine so popular from your experience around the world?
As I said before, the magic word is chutzpah. If you ask an Italian chef about a recipe, he'll give you a recipe that his grandmother, his grandmother, for 10 generations before were cooking the same dish the same way. We Israeli, as you see, have to invent ourselves every day from the beginning.
You know what they say? They say that a lot of the creativity, not just in Israeli cuisine, but also in the tech business, comes because Israelis are under pressure. And when you're under pressure, creativity comes out. So with that, let's move on to the next dish, which can actually come on top of the salad or separately. And our next dish takes us to the 60s, where, and if in the 50s we said that there was no rice, in the 60s there were no fish. But before that, and Yossi is going to open the fish, are there any questions that you may have until now to Yossi or to us? Andrew,
Yep,
any questions?
yep. There was one question. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but Naomi asked us, it says on the recipe to wash tatim. Did I do that right?
Yep. Meanwhile, I'll start dealing with the fish. What?
There you go.
If you could just move the bottle of olive oil.
The bottle of olive oil?
Yeah, just move it.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Oh, but I need it later. Never mind.
Okay, just so we
Okay.
make sure we see everything you're doing.
Okay. So can we move on to the next dish?
Yeah.
So I have a couple questions really quickly. So what is an Afghan berry?
The old Jaffa Harbor. I waited for the fishermen to come back from the sea, and I bought a nice sea bass. I came home, I cleaned it, I filleted it, and now we are going to do a nice
Sashimi.
sashimi, Israeli style sashimi.
So one of the reasons that we decided to talk and present this dish is because back in the 60s, like I said, Israel did not have any fish in the sea, and even if they did, we hardly had any fishermen. So for many, many years, a lot of Israelis were positive that sardines or any other kind of fish really come in tins, because that's all we had. Nowadays, of course, we have a large variety of fish, and nobody almost uses the ones in the tins unless you're in the army going to Miluim.
Or sometimes when you want to be like weirdo.
So this fish really also symbolizes the journey that Israel took in terms of fresh staples, having none to having really a huge variety. And I think that here again, and Yossi will have to agree with me, that it doesn't really matter what kind of fish that you use, am I right? As long as it's fresh.
As long as it's fresh and it comes from the sea.
Meaning that it's local.
That it's local.
Ah, surprise. So this is, show this to the camera.
This was like a few days ago, a fresh sardine that came from the Mediterranean. Again, I went down to the harbor. I met the fishermen who came back from the sea. I saw some very, very nice, beautiful sardines. I couldn't resist. I cleaned them. I deboned them. I took every bone out and I cured them in salt, olive oil, and lemon.
Okay.
Instead of in a tin.
No tin.
No tin.
Although there's some people.
Although we used to do the same dish at Machneyehuda restaurant, and we used to serve it in a sardine tin.
Oh, but just that's for the homage, for
Yes,
tribute
yes.
of what Israeli fish eating style used to be back in the 60s.
Exactly.
Okay, so chef, present your dish, please.
Now we are going to slice nice slices of the sea bass. Very simple, very easy. I'm at the bowl. Yeah, okay. Now, labane.
Labane
is homemade
celery
sour cheese made out of yogurt. You drain it in a chitul.
in a
Nappy?
yeah,
No?
in a nappy. That's
In
correct.
A nappy. You drain the water during the night. You add some salt and lemon. Now,
Okay, but you can also buy it, right?
you
I'm
can
sure
also
that
buy
you can buy it anywhere.
You can also buy it. Yeah. Some Atlantic salt.
אבל אני לא שומעת את זה.
On top.
אתה יכול לתת לי את זה עכשיו כזה?
I cured some hot chili, red, yellow, different kinds of peppers.
No lemon in the Tabbouleh. What is the dish that started your journey?
Perfect. Should I do all of them when we finish this?
Yes.
A few drops of olive oil and a few drops of lemon. That's one way to serve it. Now wait another 2 seconds and we'll upgrade the tabbouleh.
In the meantime, there is a question here.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, there is no, but there is lemon in the tabbouleh. No lemon in the
Of
tabbouleh?
course, there is lemon in the
How
tabbouleh.
much lemon? As soury as you like it?
As sour as you like
Oh,
it.
come on, be more precise.
Let's say for 4 portions, about half a lemon.
Okay. And there is another question related to the ingredient, which I can answer while Yossi is plating the dish. This is an Afghan berry. It's actually a wild growth that just grows on trees here in Israel in springtime. You can't really buy it industrial. You just have to pick it from a tree. I think the closest thing to it would be maybe a white strawberry.
No, they're growing on a tree.
Yes, but we don't know if they're growing in trees in Ohio, Columbus.
But you can get them for sure in the United States.
It's a type of berry, and for us Israelis, when they bloom, when they flourish in the spring, they're very nostalgic. So you see a lot of children going and picking them from trees and coming back with stained shirts. There's another question, actually a really interesting one, which I'd like to hear the answer to. What was the dish that started your professional journey? Do you remember? The dish that started you off.
That started me off. As I was raised in a family who came from Czechoslovakia, from the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. When I was a child, my mother used to cook chicken with peppers and tomatoes. It's called in Hungarian paprika. That was my vision to take Hungarian food and make it Israeli. We did it for the Hungarian ambassador in New York.
That's right. That's correct.
the fundraising for the Jewish cemetery in Budapest.
Right. And there's another question about one of your dishes. I can answer that, but I want you to answer that. Maybe you'll have a different answer. Talking about Israeli chefs being loaded with chutzpah and really wanting to have fun, I would even say balagan. What is the most fun, crazy, and chutzpah loaded dish that you ever cooked?
Well, I think every dish I cook has its own chutzpah, you know.
I think the answer to that would be the ratatouille that you challenged a Michelin chef
Michelin
with.
chef.
So please tell that story.
Well, during my career, I decided I want to cook once in a 3 Michelin star restaurant. And I have a friend, he introduced me to a chef who they have in the family a restaurant for about 60 years. And they have 3 Michelin stars for 50 years. And I called him and I asked, Mark, can I come for a week to do some training in your famous restaurant? And I came and I told him, well, you treat me like the simplest last cook you received in your kitchen. And he said, okay. And he asked me if I can do a ratatouille. And I said, well, sure, of course I can do a ratatouille. Ratatouille is easy. I took the ingredients for ratatouille and all of a sudden...
Wait, a classical ratatouille, French way, would have?
Aubergines, zucchini, tomatoes, and pepperoni.
And that's it.
And that's it. And I did the typical French ratatouille, but in a glimpse of an eye, in the corner, I saw some apricots. And I took some apricots and I added to the ratatouille.
Did the chef smash it on your head?
And the chef, I showed it to the chef, he looked at it, and he put it down on the table and said, for 400 years, we are doing ratatouille the same way. Why to change? And he took it and he wanted to throw it away. I took his hand and I said, wait, taste first before you throw it away. Then you can do whatever you want. He tasted. He said, okay, I cannot serve it in the restaurant, but the whole staff will have lunch.
That's a lot of chutzpah.
That's a lot of chutzpah.
Okay, let's present this dish.
Yeah, 2 ways. Okay.
Okay, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the dish, Yossi's story, or anything that you want to ask him or us together. Andrew will send it to Ezra here, and I'll answer them when we finish our next dish. So our next dish is really about the name of our show, which is Israel in a Pita. And I'm sure that those of you who've been to Israel, and even those of you who haven't, know that Israelis are absolutely crazy for anything that comes in a pita. They'll even prefer it to any dish in a plate. And there's also a way to eat a pita. Please demonstrate, Chef.
Well,
so you have to remember, every time you eat a pita, this is the way to do
this
it.
is the way to do it. Okay?
And this is because?
Because the manager of
No, why do you have to lean forward before the story?
Before the story?
Because
you stuff it with a lot of food, as much as food as you can stuff the pita with. The more is better.
You know, Israelis, they want a pita
And
for
you
10
add
shekels
you add on top some hummus and tahini
and
and
amba.
harissa and amba and well, a lot of sauces. If you'll eat it like this, you'll be
And also
Sorry.
because it's so filled and crushed, there's a little hole here. So in order not to stain your shirt, you see a lot of Israelis leaning forward.
that's the way to eat it.
Okay, so there is an urban legend going on regarding why Israelis love their pita. Why is food in Israel, why there's so many street food stalls that serve
Well,
things in
You
pitas?
mean the story of old Rahmo?
Yes, which is, I am not clear about if it's true, but it's a great
Well,
story.
it's a great story. Old Rahmo was an old Kurd Jew who came from Kurdistan, and they are stingy, you know. They don't waste money on nothing.
It's just a joke.
Yeah, okay. And he opened a restaurant in Jerusalem, and the people from the municipality came to him and said, you know, Mr. Rahmo, you'll have to pay taxes. And they asked him, and he asked, how are you going to collect the taxes? And they said, well, we count the chairs that you have in the restaurant, and you'll pay a shilling, old money, a shilling for each chair. He said, no problem, out with the chairs of the restaurant. And the people asked him, how are we going to eat? And he said, no problem, in a pita.
Ah, so you think this is why we love our pita?
That's the way to, yeah, of course. And as I said before, because you can stuff it, you know, more and eat out and add some more food and again, until you're getting.
So our next dish, our principal dish, is called arayes.
Arayes.
And what does arayes mean?
Arayes means minced meat. You have to buy the best meat you can get. You have to have at least 20 to 25% of fat. We love our food fat.
Can we do it with any type of minced meat? Can it be lamb? Can it be beef?
It can be lamb as well, lamb or beef. Lamb
Okay,
or beef.
so let's start this dish going.
And I'll heat my stove. Yeah. Okay. We take the meat, we mince it. The original recipe again has meat, salt, maybe some cumin and pepper. As I told you before, I love my spices fresh. So
So while you're grinding the spices, there is a question here from the audience asking, A, what is your favorite spice? And two, is there a one trick pony that you can use? Like, I know the answer to that. No, but first say, what is your favorite spice?
my favorite spice is salt.
Wow, salt.
Salt, yeah. The basic ingredient, the basic spice in I had a teacher, he told me, use salt wisely. Be stingy, but be a king on the other side. So, you know.
So if you were to take one spice to an island, it would be salt.
It will be salt, and then I'll use the herbs I'll find on the island, like thyme, like garden cress, like rosemary, mint. Okay, so this is the original recipe. Beef, a lot of fat, some salt, some cumin. I add some fried onions with in olive oil, and I'll chop in some parsley. I'll wash my hands. And we'll mix it.
So while you're mixing the meat here, the second question would be that came from the audience is there one spice that is really good for everything? And it makes me wonder, maybe we can talk a little bit about what is the purpose of having spices in the kitchen? And for many, and that goes back to the 50s where Israel really had almost no spices. And what did the Israeli old women use as a spice that would really spice up all their dishes?
Soup powder.
Yeah, so it's like chicken soup.
Chicken soup powder.
That's the ultimate.
That's the ultimate spice.
It will even flavor ice cream, I think.
Yeah.
But nowadays, nobody really uses it, right?
Some people, but very little, very little.
So your
Now-
answer to that would still be salt, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay. So you're putting the meat inside the
Inside
pita,
the pita,
completely raw,
completely raw.
not cooked, not fried.
Not cooked, not fried.
Wow.
Now, if you have a charcoal grill or
Striped skillet,
striped skillet,
and even an oven
or
is okay.
even an oven.
So this dish actually comes originally from the Palestinian kitchen, from the Arabic kitchen.
Yes.
And it became very popular now,
Well,
especially among young, trendy restaurants, right?
young trendy restaurants, young trendy chefs. You see how easy it is. You don't have to deal with it too much. Was my
So
fault.
it's like actually almost like spaghetti and meatballs, but inside a pita.
Inside the pita.
Okay. So it's
I
like
use-
filling it to the end.
Filling it to the end. I use a stripe skillet. Again, my hands.
How long are the pitas supposed to be on the skillet?
Until it's ready.
How do we know when it's ready?
We'll
For those
see.
of us who are not professional chefs,
It takes about 5 to 7 minutes on each side.
okay.
In the oven, you can do it like for about 12 to 13 minutes. On the grill, if you have a charcoal grill, it's the best way to do it until it gets, don't put it on a very high heat, just a medium heat, and wait until it gets a nice color, nice burnt color. We'll see it in a few minutes.
You mean that the meat will change the color, right?
No, the pita will change the color.
But what about the meat
The
inside?
meat inside cooks from the steam and from the heat that comes into the.
Wow.
This is too hot.
Shalom.
I'll do a trick.
Wow, it's a shame that the audience can't smell or taste. But naturally, Yossi, you would do it on the grill, right?
Yes,
That would be your first choice.
that will be my first choice. Can you come with the camera? Hello. The zoom in.
So in the meantime, do you have sauces for that?
You can use tahini. You can use harissa.
What is harissa?
Harissa is a sauce of hot bread, usually red. I did this one, a special recipe from green peppers, which I dried with salt in the sun. Then I cleaned the salt and chopped it. Some hummus.
What about your favorite cured lemons?
That comes on the side.
Okay.
That,
So naturally, you would serve this along with tahina and some hot sauce.
usually, with a rice, you don't need a lot of sauces.
Oh, okay.
So the meat is so juicy.
So here's a question for you from the
Yeah.
audience. Is the red chili dry chili or is it fresh?
The real harissa is made from dried chili. You soak it in water, you drain it, and then you grind it. But again, as I said before, we are Israelis. We have to invent ourselves every time, again and again. And I play with it.
So this is why every time I come over, your harissa tastes different.
My harissa tastes different. Yeah, this is again. I chopped a lot of chili peppers, cure them in salt, let them stand a little bit. I added some vinegar and olive oil, and I use it whenever I want some hot chili sauce. I added in this one, I added some garlic. Yeah,
Okay,
we are almost done.
looks pretty done to me.
Here is our arayas.
Perfect Independence Day dish, by the way.
Mm.
Okay. Guess what? Since you're so busy having so much fun, we only have a few minutes for dessert. So I think we're going to present this dish and explain the method of preparation
Yeah, okay.
without
I'll
making
do
it because
I'll do it very
we
fast.
prepared, wait, this is malabi. For dessert, we chose malabi. Again, one of Israel's most popular and trendiest desserts. A lot of Israeli food comes from poverty kitchens, meaning that there were very, very few ingredients to use. So you had to play with them. This is basically about starch.
Milk, starch, and rose water.
That's the
But-
basic.
But as we are Israeli chefs and we have chutzpah, this one I added some cream. I added some peaches that I grinded with some rose water and sugar and did it the regular way. I decorated it with some crushed pistachios and slices of peaches. The way to do it is very simple. You mix the milk, you mix milk and the cream. You need about 650 mils. You take about 100. You mix the starch with the liquids. The rest of the liquids you boil. When it starts boiling, you mix the mixed cornstarch with the boiling milk, and you keep stirring until it gets thick. If you want to add some other liquid, like I did with peaches, so you decrease the amount of milk and cream. You can use strawberries, you can use apricots, or just milk, or as I said, milk and cream.
So before we end this session, there is a question regarding the spice before.
Yeah.
So the question is, what is za'atar spice and how is it used? In what way?
Za'atar is actually from the same family as oregano. Yeah, this is oregano. It comes from the same family as thyme. It's like wild oregano, and it grows in the mountains. The smell is outstanding.
Especially during the summer, and it comes dry as well, right?
You pick it green and you dry it.
Did you dry them yourself?
Of course, I picked them myself. I dried them myself. I eat
Wow.
them myself.
I can smell it all the way
Ah.
to here. Wonderful. So I think this is a perfect time to end this show with a beautiful view of our sunset. Maybe our photographer can take us there and we can end this.
With a bottle of wine.
It's outside.
It's outside. Ah, okay.
Okay.
Well, I lost my. Oop. מה, זה כבר עברה שעה? תראי איזה שקיעה, וואי. Oh,
So with this beautiful sunset
good.
overlooking Jaffa's beautiful seaside, it's time to say goodbye and thank you so much for joining us. We're waiting for you to come to Israel and meet us and talk to us and Yossi will be glad to cook for you because that's what he loves to do. Thank you so much, Andrew and Lisa and Michal. And happy Independence Day to all of you out there in Columbus, Ohio. L'chaim.
L'chaim, Hagit, and Chef, this was fantastic. Thank you so much. I especially love the story about the pita. My first day in Israel, I arrived by boat into Haifa, and I went to the falafel stand and I just put in a little bit of stuff, and the guy looks at me and he says, "Don't be shy." I said, "I'm not shy." And he goes, "Don't be a schmuck. It's the same price." Loaded up, and taught me how to eat pita. This was fantastic and so entertaining. And now I'm starving and I have absolutely no cooking ability, so I don't know what I'm going to do about it. But thank you to Chef Yossi. Thank you to Hagit. It was wonderful. I'm thrilled that we had so many people logging on to our webinar. We're going to do more. We will make sure that you know about them as they come up. If you have questions about our Israel and overseas programs, you can reach out to our new shlicha, Michal Avera Samuel, or to Lisa Ween. We will be talking to you about future missions. Hagit said she looks forward to seeing us in Israel sometime. That's a deal. We will be there. I'm Andrew. It's been a lot of fun. If you have other questions, you can feel free to email and we'll try to get some answers to you. We hope we got to all the Q&As. A little technical difficulty on them hearing us. But I wish everybody a wonderful rest of the weekend, and stay safe, stay healthy, stay COVID-free, and we'll come to you again soon on another program. Everybody have a great day.